Hey, welcome back to Hanging Out Podcast, where I don't remember the intro. That's kind of becoming the intro. Today we're
Yeah,
hanging out with Audrey Schutte. Is it Shoot?
shooty,
Shooty.
isn't
Shooty.
it?
Okay. Well, who you might know from her wonderful concept illustrations.
I mean, it's okay. We've gone over my last name a whole bunch of times. It's probably good that we go over some other last names a few times too.
Yeah. It's your fault. Yours sounds like a sauce.
Yeah, yeah. It's not. Well, I think people look at it and they think Bernays, right? And it's not how
Mm.
it's pronounced at all.
So,
Uh,
how's it going, Audrey?
alive.
That's a good.
Yeah, it's
how,
going.
how about how about artwork? Got any cool things cooking these days?
Well, I mean, I just finished the new art book Kickstarter, so I'm fulfilling that right now. I'm like halfway done with fulfillments. And then I've relaunching an old indie game studio that I did like 6 years ago, 7 years
Okay.
ago. So I'm working on relaunching that with one title. We've got three other ones on the
So this
docket after
is
that.
like tabletop
Mm,
games or computer games or what?
PC games for this.
PC games? Okay.
Yeah, because tabletop is kind of,
Yeah, they're in a rough spot right now
yeah, with
Yeah.
tariffs
with
and everything
tariffs.
there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
electronic goods for the win, I guess, right now.
Yeah, I would like to, because I mean, I have, that's the other thing I'm working on is like I have a couple other books on the way personally. Like I'm just working on a little messed up horse one right now, and then I have a monster manual I've been working on for years, which Bruce has gotten to see. Like,
I've gotten a little inside peek.
yeah, and that is kind of hinged upon how much publishing is going to be, because I still publish in the U.S., but
Mhm.
Right, I was gonna say that given everything going on with Kickstarters and fulfillment, it's probably a strategic advantage for you, at least for the time being, that you actually do have your books published in the US.
yeah, but they get all their paper from Canada and other ink from China.
Right.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
always other input, so
Yes.
Yeah, I remember when we got quotes from U.S. printers that were referred to us, and it was astronomical compared to what we were getting out of China, to the point where you really don't have a choice, if you're trying to make a large margin. Well, of course you do have a choice, right? But we just decided to go that route just for margin's sake. And yeah,
what
so
kind of
you,
marginal difference were you looking at here? Like, was it
I can't recall the quotes from the U.S. printers,
was like
but
double the cost or 10
it
times the
it was more
cost
than
or
double the cost. I
okay.
can. So, Audrey, have you shopped around recently that you could give some insight?
Um, I was looking a bit last year, and it was I get at this place I go to, I get the employee discount
Mhm.
because my
Just got a
mother works
family
there, and
connection,
I
yeah.
used to work there. I used
Oh,
to work in the
nice.
bindery, so I get a discount. It is still a bit more than it would be to go through China, at
Mm.
least than it would have been. Um,
Well, I can tell you that just and everything plays a role. Quantity plays a huge role. But for Todd's book, which I think is just right at maybe the 300-page mark, full color hardback, is we were getting $15 a book, which feels like an absolute steal. Uh,
oh yeah, that's not bad. I think they don't do hardcover is the problem with my place. Like I want my monster manual to be hardcover, so they're looking into it because I've been pushing them for a while. But it ended up this last book went up in price quite a bit, so it ended up being like $9 a book
mm.
for I want to say what is 120-page paperback,
Oh, that's pretty good.
full color. Yeah.
What's the size on that?
It is. I should probably know this. I was like, it's somewhere in my office.
Yeah.
This size. So
Nice.
I want to say this is, what is this? 10.
8 by 10.
Yeah, maybe. I think.
Yeah, it seems about right.
I could mail you a ruler.
I have a ruler.
I'll throw it and see if it gets there.
Particularly since it came up on screen. For anyone who's not familiar with Audrey's work, she really focuses a lot on creatures and monsters, and I mean, really some of the best creature design work that I've seen anywhere.
Mhm.
You just like live and breathe that stuff. It's amazing. I love it.
Only it equaled work. It's like 8.5 by like 10 3/4. It's a weird size.
Okay. Yeah, that's nice. So when you're doing the Kickstarter, how many Kickstarters have you done now?
This is the third book one, and then I did like a random like the
Like
Mate
pins
100
or
thing.
something.
Yeah.
So you're all about playing the margin game whenever you're doing that, right?
Yeah.
Because you have to calculate shipping and all that
I
before you do
paid
it.
this for this entire thing ahead of time.
Oh, okay.
This time, which I'm very glad I did. 'Cause-
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
You locked in those prices at the right time.
Uh-huh. I did put myself in a bunch of credit card debt, but I kind of treat Kickstarter as more of a pre-order system at this point.
Right.
Because like I can't really get pre-orders done through social media anymore because social media is
Dying.
largely dead.
Yeah.
Like Blue Sky's slowly building up there, but damn, has it got a lot of bots right now.
Yeah. Well, everywhere's got a lot of bots.
I
The
love
AI
having to
craze
block like
ensured
100
that.
people a day.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So you're essentially ordering a bunch of stock for conventions coming up as and sort of ongoing sales, like that kind of thing.
yes, that is at least the plan. Though I am not doing all that many conventions anymore, so
I was going to ask, how many conventions a year are you at this point?
I'm only at like 3.
3? Okay. You still doing Lightbox?
No, I didn't even sign up for Lightbox this year.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't sign up last year either. They just asked me to do the talk.
Right, okay.
It was weird going last year because it's a lot of students.
Yeah, it's very student heavy these days. Lots of desperation for jobs in the air.
Yeah, and like most of the kids very nice. There are definitely some kids that are like, "Do you have a job? No, fuck you."
Yeah. Let me push past you and try and find someone who's got more influence on my career.
Yeah, so it's like I don't have enough sticks or spoons left for that crowd this year.
Yeah.
Mostly like not even like the rude ones. It's more like the I don't know what hope to give you kind
Right.
of thing.
Yeah. It's sad when you don't really have an answer for their desperation, and you're like, well, you're graduating into like probably the worst art jobs market that we've ever seen, and kind of almost across the board for like most types of art jobs, right? Like the studios are cutting jobs, the game companies are cutting jobs, like
Yeah.
Somebody reached out to me, actually several people, but one really notable after my recent bout of shows, and when they asked about how do I get into the book cover industry, and you're like,
oh no,
what book cover industry?
It's not much of an industry these days.
I started the email with something I do believe, which is that it's never been easier for an artist to make a name for themselves, but at the same time, never harder to find a well-paying job and career path. Right?
It's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why like conventions are not easy to get into anymore because there's a lot of very skilled people that no longer have full-time work that are like, I will pivot to the convention circuit, which makes sense. But there's a heck of a lot more competition.
I like to think of it this way, like, basically AI and economic conditions came through and burned down large sections of the rainforest, and we've got these like little copses of remaining forest that all the animals are crowding into and stressing those ecosystems too.
Yeah.
Or maybe another way to say is like all the frogs are trying to hop onto the same lily pad and it's like sinking. Or getting more gatekeepy than it used to be, because it used to be the case that if you felt like you were being kept out of those, industry studio type jobs, you could pivot to conventions and it was relatively easy to get in that door and just make that start happening. But that's less and less the case.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when you're doing stuff like Audrey's doing, you can have a little bit of control over your own fate, right? In doing Kickstarters. The one thing I keep saying about AI is that it's just going to make homemade items, unique items, a little bit more valuable, even if the
Yeah.
audience,
I'd hope so.
shrinks.
I mean, I did notice that at Emerald City last month is a lot of people were, because I do both digital and traditional media, so I have like a lot of pencil drawings and watercolors, but I also have digital sculpts and 3D prints and all that stuff, and people were gravitating towards the watercolors and the pencil sketches because they don't want anything. They don't trust anything digital anymore, which is kind of unfortunate because I finally got good at it, and now nobody wants it.
Right, yeah, got good just in time. I mean, to be fair, like those tools are still useful tools to have, even if your ending output is going to be more and more traditional, right? Like, so at least it still feeds into your overall success, I'm sure. But yeah, it's annoying. I was an early adopter for digital back in college, like, back in like the early aughts. And so I've got like 20 years of like primarily digital experience that is now devalued. So okay, let's enjoy more and more traditional now.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking into traditional these days as well. Although I might go a little bit more local with it. Who knows? I change my career path every week. But no, I also meant just having your own product line that's not just prints. When you're doing these books, I feel like when we say, it is true for prints when I say, oh well, you can't get that anywhere else other than the artist or their shop. But I feel like a book is a little bit different because most artists you can't even get a book, or you're never going to see that book anywhere else. So
sorry, I had to mute because of
Artifact.
the dog. Yeah, I mean, unless you're like, oh god, like Iris managed to get hers, massively published. But yeah, mine are. I've thought about approaching some of the local bookstores and being like, "Can I get this?"
You should go for it. Why not? What's to lose?
Yeah, I guess. But yeah,
And
like books.
especially like, if you think about like bookstores these days, the ones that still exist, right? They're also kind of in the same position that we are, where they have to justify their existence to people by having more homespun, local type stuff, right? So honestly, that should give you a good pitch to make for some of these places.
That is true. It's like I know I've got it. I know just from the people that back me that it's in many libraries.
Oh,
which
that's
is
awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean the books were just kind of like an after effect. They weren't really the goal. Because that's what I like collecting from artists. Like,
right.
I don't have room for prints anymore. I only buy originals, which are obviously often very out of my price range.
Yeah.
Or I'm buying art books. So I kind of made what I like to buy, and it's not like I doing this Kickstarter. I made back what I spent, and that was about it.
Right, and that's why I said like you're preparing for future stock that you can hopefully move at other things. Now, granted, if you don't have any conventions, that could be a problem. So, have you thought about any other channels for selling those now that you've got them?
I'm honestly still trying to figure it out because like part of the conventions is like Ernesto's usually helping me. My partner, he's usually helping me, and he's very tired of them. He hates them.
Yeah.
Which is why I usually get booth helpers now. But then it's a lot of the time it's like I don't make the level of money that like you or Katie make, just because creatures are so much harder to market.
Sure.
And even the shows that I used to do really well at, like Monsterpalooza, I'm still going to Monsterpalooza, even though I barely broke even last year. And like every year I go back and I'm making less and less and less, and the tables keep getting more and more and more. So it's like it's not sustainable. Um, so yeah, that's one of the reasons why we're working on relaunching the indie studio, because I'm like,
Right, you need to pivot to something.
yeah, and like I'm looking at all the big studios; they're obviously failing.
Yes.
They've got
They've been financialized, and
yes,
their money men are, doing that whole like private equity trick of, like
yeah,
pulling out all the support and then, you know, um, privatizing the profits to themselves.
yeah, and they just want the same thing. So like they will happily embrace AI because it's like they don't care if it's never going to be better than mediocre. They're
Yeah,
like mediocre will make us something. It's like that's not sustainable.
yeah,
People are going to get tired of AI generated Captain America 30 times. They're going to start gravitating towards there's like the pendulum will swing back.
yeah,
It's it's starting to right now, finally starting to, but it's like the damage has been done. It's going to be probably a good 5 years before it really recoups.
yeah.
So I'm like, I that's why like Ernesto and I were like, why don't we restart our indie studio, and then like if we actually can get it off the ground well enough, turn it into a publisher for indie stuff. So that's kind of the hope. We may move to Mexico.
Hey, why
So,
not at this point, right?
Yeah.
what's your background for doing indie games like that?
I've actually been doing indie games mostly because I mean I've been out of college since 2013. So I started right away in indie games. I had the chance to start like right away at ArenaNet, but this was back when they did unpaid interns, and I didn't want to fail
Do
my
that.
college final to start working for them for free. So I did not do that. I so yeah, I worked for a bunch of like I worked on the Soul Saga, which at that time was like the biggest indie game funded on Kickstarter, and that was a hot mess. That made I can't remember how much it made, but it was like it was in the news. It made so much money, and it was so poorly managed. And I think it eventually came out finally like 4 years ago, and it's nothing like what I worked on.
Yeah. So it was in development hell for quite a long time.
It was led by a sociopath hell for a long time. But yeah, so I worked on that. Did some stuff for like Monty Cook. I had a bunch of other indie game studios, and then eventually, like I've done bigger stuff for like I've done illustrative stuff for like Blizzard. And then that I had at the same time as I started at Netflix,
Right.
and I was finally transitioning into film and animation, and then all that.
And then Netflix did its usual thing where it just cancels or downsizes projects. I don't
Yeah,
know what you can say or not say.
I
So feel
finally they've been slowly like releasing some of the hold. Like I wasn't allowed to do specifics. I'm still not allowed to really do specifics. It was like adult animation. That was all I was really allowed to say for the longest time. But I finally got the okay to say who I worked for. So like
and who did
that,
you work for?
I worked for Guillermo del Toro.
That was
Oh
awesome.
wow.
I was so pissed though when they like canceled stuff and then they moved everything over and then it was like a totally different thing. So then they like downsized a bunch. They pretty much got rid of a bunch of whoever wasn't working in another country significantly cheaper but remote got let go. And that project was a total pivot. But yeah, and now neither of them exist.
Wow. That's to reach those peaks and
Yeah,
then the rug pull is wow.
yeah, yeah. I got to work for pretty much my dream director, and then I didn't.
Well, at least he knows your name, right? I mean, you
Right, I
could
was gonna
Yeah,
say on the plus side, like, he's gonna keep on making stuff regardless of what kind of shittery the
yeah,
likes of Netflix gets up to. So hopefully that leads to other interesting opportunities for you in future.
yeah. I'm wondering. I know he had an agreement with Netflix, which is why everything was through them. for a while because like Pinocchio was done at a different studio, but it was published under them and everything. And I don't know how long that agreement is, but it's like projects for years. But I think at this point he's ready to burn that bridge. I don't know.
It's
We'll see.
understandable.
But yeah, like I'm still in touch with like one of his because he has his stable crew
Right,
of
right.
dudes.
He's got his entourage of artists and
Of the
creatives.
typical, yeah. Which like I mean, I got to work with most of them, and they're all great guys. But it is very much like a. When I first got brought on, it was like blue sky phase of the first project, and I was like a shot in the dark test, and it was me and Iris Compier,
Yeah.
and we were the only women. And we were both given like here's like a 2-month test trial. We'll see if we bring you back, kind of thing. Yeah. So
But
that
you were
was
working on it for a while. I mean, you were working with him for a while, so that must have worked out.
yeah. He brought me back. So I was on it for almost 2 years. So I did something right. But yeah, it was really interesting. It was awesome being able to work with like Wayne Barlow and everyone. But like,
Goodness,
yeah.
that's awesome.
But yes, I loved that job, and I'm very sad that I found out that it was very untypical for animation and film work to actually have a good team,
Hmm.
and then B that's kind of the team that gets axed. Apparently, we had too much synergy.
Things are going too well for Netflix.
Uh-huh.
They've got to. That can't happen.
Shake
there.
it up and cancel it before it does anything.
I mean, it made absolutely no sense. Like because I would occasionally go down to Burbank and work there, and like we had they would blow up some of our art and put it on these huge panels on the wall, and they would bring like investors up to our floor just to tour our art gallery, and it's like, so they used this to pitch to people to get more money, but then
when
we got
push
axed.
came to shove, okay,
Yeah.
you're costing us too much money.
They're like, how is this going to be Bluey?
Well, you hired Guillermo del Toro. I don't think it's going to be Bluey, or if it is Bluey, it's not going to be the Bluey that you think it's going to be.
No, yeah. That was one of the most frustrating things. Like hearing any of the corporate guys talk when I was there, I was like, how is any of this surviving?
Yeah.
Because all I kept hearing was Squid Games and Boss Baby. Boss Baby is their #1 performer in animation. The TV show. They don't even make it. They just license it.
Yeah, I was his name is Brian something. Blue Eye Samurai, the anime that came out, and it's a really neat style because it's sort of half 3D, and I think they did that because very low budget. I think they only had 2 or 3 artists working on the whole thing, and they still managed to come out with, I think, one of the best shows I've seen. But like all the parameters it had to meet to get re-upped for season 2, and then after a certain amount of time, he was willing to go through and talk about the struggle to even get it made in the first place. It's really eye-opening in how much how much they expect you to do. Were you working like 60-hour weeks?
Probably more than that.
I mean, I kind of
probably more than that, knowing Audrey.
Yeah, I mean, that was very much a like, I want this job, I want this to succeed. I definitely work more hours than I should have. I mean, I did not have I was very lucky. I had like Guy Davis and Alfonso Blas were the creative directors, and they were very much not into doing crunch, but that didn't mean we weren't crunching. I mean, Blue Eyed Samurai was finishing up while we were kind of kicking off. So like they were doing it fully remote because this was during the pandemic, and we got started fully remote. And like we were kind of both poster childs for how it was succeeding being remote. And that did rub a lot of people the wrong way. There's a lot of people that really want to keep animation LA focused.
Right. Because they understand that once that dam starts to break, then suddenly all of it's being sent out to, the Philippines or someplace instead of
They're
local.
already sending it out to the Philippines.
Yeah.
that was half my job, was making vendor packets to send out to.
No.
So it's like there's but yeah, that's kind of why I know there's a huge push right now to do like a tax break in California to bring back animation jobs, and it's like I understand why they're doing it. I don't see that as being the savior of the animation industry.
Right. The savings to outsource this stuff is too juicy for those execs to pass up, no matter how much money you dangle in front of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd rather be a little less famous and not live in LA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
sounds
love
like
LA.
a good.
I loved visiting, but I don't want to live there.
It's
So,
way like we looked at like renting an apartment so I could work, because I was starting to read the writing on the walls that they were, once COVID was winding down as much as it could, and they started bringing back people in office. I was like, even though my leads are like, oh no, you're fine, I was like, they're gonna start.
Yeah.
So I started looking at apartments to rent one, and it was insane. It is like there are people working, making $120,000 a year, but with 4 roommates in like a 2-bedroom apartment, and it's like that's not sustainable.
Nope.
But yeah, also another reason why Mexico.
Yeah, well, Mexico and your own studio sounds like you're taking your fate into your own hands, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, at least it'll be like, because they'll be very reliant on Ernesto. Obviously, well, he's from Mexico. He wants to go back, but he's the one that has the budget.
yeah.
Right.
Which part of Mexico were you thinking, or is he from?
He's from like boonies. Like we visited his hometown. It's literally like a curved road that's paved, and the rest of it's dirt, and it's very bumpy, and it's
Oh,
farmland.
nice.
No one has heard of it. It's called Los Razos, but it's outside of like San Miguel. We want to go to probably Mexico City, which is huge. It's bigger than LA, but
Yeah.
Right.
it's very different in vibes. It's very like a lot of ancient architecture still kept around, or not ancient, but old architecture kept around. They like have huge trees, and instead of cutting them down, they like build the sidewalks around them. So there's a lot of green all year round. There's like people have elaborate flower pots out front, and there's excellent food everywhere. Yes.
I've got rich friends. Well, they weren't rich when I knew them, but they live in Mexico City, and they're constantly posting Instagram stories about it. I know way too much about how beautiful Mexico City is.
It is. I mean, there's definitely parts where you're like, like LA has the same thing. Every city's got its areas, but like, yeah.
What you learn by going to such places is that, in our American bubble, we'll be like, oh, that place is too dangerous to visit, but it's like anywhere else. If you know where to go and have a little bit, and where not to go and have a little bit of street sense, you're fine. Like, I had to give the same spiel to my Chinese students when talking about America and places like Detroit. I'm like, Detroit's fine to visit. There's certain areas at certain times of day you might not want to be hanging around. Like, that's it.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I've spent months in Mexico City, and the worst that's happened is like there was it was when they were, I think they're still doing it, where they were like holding migrants from South America in Mexico. So there was a lot of displaced people. I had someone try to pickpocket me. That was the worst I've had happen.
Yeah. And you could have the same thing happen to you in Europe, right? So it's,
I've had worse in downtown Seattle. I've had people whip bamboo poles at me for no reason.
Wow.
Seattle's definitely one of the rougher places, believe it or not. I think people think of it and they don't think, like they see maybe the videos of people maybe a little drugged out, lazy drugged out on the streets, but man, there's some psychos. I had a guy, I was walking up from Pike Place, it's on a slope there, and there's a guy coming down the slope on a sidewalk wielding a butcher knife in a wheelchair.
Oh,
and he was just gliding along down that slope, and people, you can't see, because people in front of me were like moving out of the way, and I was looking at something else, and I looked back, and right as this guy's like 2 feet away from me, just waving this butcher knife around. I'm like, oh no. So
Seattle, I think, has a problem where like the East Coast has been around long enough that it was set up where they had shelters in place when they city planned. There was homeless shelters built with the city, and then Seattle kind of had to be rebuilt, obviously, because
Yeah.
of the so it's a city on top of a city, and they didn't plan for that at all. So there's just not enough housing.
Yeah, well, it was
Or,
a small
yeah,
place for a very long time
yeah,
until relatively recently, and a lot of the people in charge of the place, in their mind, they still want it to be like a small community type of place, and they haven't, allowed themselves to adopt the reality of the situation that they actually have to plan for.
yeah.
So there's a lot of like wishful thinking or something about, oh well, we need to keep Seattle small. It's like, sorry,
Mm.
that ship is flown.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
gone. Uh, you need to plan your transportation better. You need to plan for a hell of a lot more housing and let the realtors scream. Like
Hmm.
that's what it's going to take to make it, you know, uh, work well.
Yeah, there's a lot of denial. There's progress being made.
Yeah.
But like even they they did one of the first big apartment complex that they zoned specifically for uh to be like a homeless halfway house. So you have a residence to apply to jobs for and everything, and you'd have somewhere to shower and everything. I did not realize it. But one of my figure drawing models from college was living there, and he actually got murdered
Oh,
by
wow.
his roommate. And I found out like years later, and I was like, oh shit, he was the nicest guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's like even the like well planned out ones still obviously have issues. But yeah, poor Hoagie.
Yeah. I mean, just like Bruce said, that stuff can happen anywhere, and
Yeah,
it's good that you're willing to travel. And like you said, taking your fate into your own hands. At least if it, I always tell myself when I do something like that, if it doesn't work out, it was something I tried, did my best, and I always feel a little more proud of things, even if they don't work out, if I have control over them. Um,
that's good.
I highly recommend the expat life as a way to take your fate into your hands. It worked for me. Now,
Yeah,
granted, it doesn't necessarily work out for everyone, but again, at least you tried.
yeah. I think like because Ernest was wanting to move back for pretty much as long as I've known him, which is God, we've been together for like 12 years. Uh, so I for the longest time was pushing back on it because it's like everybody I know is here, but it's like I abandoned pretty much everything in the Midwest to move to Washington and completely rebuilt, and it's like
Right.
at this point I've got enough like online connections that I feel fairly secure in
Right.
ditching
Well, it's
everything
it's
again.
the same reason why, like, actually, both Alan and I used to be in the Seattle area and doing all the networking things that we could do. And now we're at the point where we don't really have to do that much of that. So we're both living in far more rural little corners of our respective states than we were before because, well, we've made the contacts and, we're keeping things, fresh with people online and via conventions.
Yeah.
So it's not necessary to live in the hubbub and heart of things anymore.
I think I am not quite at that level where I don't have the connections. Like, yes, I work for Guillermo. I can't say on what. I can't show anything. Can't put it on an IMDb page.
oh, that's wild.
So like, it doesn't really open any doors for me. Like, not nearly as many as you'd hope. And it's like a lot of the networking that I need to do. I've kind of come to the realization in the last like 2 years since Netflix that a lot of people currently in charge that I would have to rub elbows with are monsters, and I want nothing to do with them.
Right.
So it's
So you
like,
got to chart a different course.
yeah, because I mean, God, we had somebody that was on our team that was incredibly skilled, wins awards all the time, um, refused to take art direction from a woman, so he got let go, and he's now art director at like a studio that I really, really wanted to work for. And I'm just like, I've given up applying for that place because I'm like, I don't think he'll ever allow a woman to move up in the company. Like,
Right, right.
and he's far from the only one. There's a lot of, especially right now that this is their heyday. So
Yeah, they're they're like, okay, it's all flags go for assholes right now,
yeah,
so
I mean,
this is our time.
it's kind of scary. Like I'm in a Discord that's it's women in animation and games and trans people and women, not just trans women, transgender people all together in one Discord, and we commiserate.
Yeah.
And it's like every single time you see like a job posting, like we'll share a job, and then everyone will be like, and here's this red flag for that one, and here's this red
And
flag for
here's
that one.
this, yeah, here's why that one's not going to work out. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very depressing. I mean, I had this lovely talk with Kamala who's Nick? I'm not totally sure how to pronounce her last name. Um, she was running Free the Work, which was a nonprofit that was helping facilitate studios hiring more essentially DIE hires or DEI hires. You know, trying to hire outside of
Usual.
the bubble. Yeah. And like it was an awesome program. And then she said like the moment this like recent wave started, she just like lost all funding. It was just gone, and like all these studios canceled their programs, and it's like they were big game studios that she was working for.
Yeah.
And it's become increasingly hostile for women, trans people, minorities to work in film, animation, all games. It's like you have to build it yourself, or it's
right.
quite possibly not going to be there. And that's the unfortunate reality. So I'm in the build it myself stage.
Well, I hope you're hugely successful with it.
You talked about not having a lot of contacts, but I'm pretty sure you have a lot more Instagram followers than me, don't you?
I don't even touch Instagram. I have lost like 12,000 followers on Instagram because
third world problems, man.
First
Instagram
world
doesn't
problems.
do
12,000.
It doesn't do jack shit for me.
Right. And that's the thing. Like, no matter how many, I mean, we started realizing this early on with Facebook because they were the first ones to do it, where it's like, it doesn't matter how many followers you have if they don't show your followers your stuff.
I have to pay to reach like 10% of my followers.
Yeah.
It's insane. I tried it for the Kickstarter. I think I maybe got 4 backers from Instagram. So those numbers mean next to nothing. And that was me paying.
Yeah, in my experience, trying to mobilize buyers from social media, what's most effective is whatever social media happens to be out there that is not applying an algorithmic sorting to what people are going to be seeing. So like for my Kickstarter at the time, it was Reddit that was most successful. Currently, in terms of like, working with like Magic the Gathering stuff, it's like discords, like fan discords that are related to like collectors and things like that, because it cuts out the middleman. Anytime there's a middleman, you're pretty much screwed.
Smaller communities do it for me, and I don't have the Magic stuff yet, but mailing list does pretty well for me, and which I grow mostly through conventions. I still don't think the conversion rate's massive. It's better in the groups. When I post Bulgarian artwork in Bulgarian groups, that does really well. But I have to look up my conversion rate on my email. It's somewhere because it's all tied together. But it's not a bad thing.
Conversion rate on newsletters is better than you get with social media for sure, but it's not necessarily huge. Like if you're looking at those percentages and you're feeling bad about them, typically they're actually better than the average for,
Oh yeah. Well, what was I want to say the standard retail store is something like 2 to 4%.
Yeah.
From people that walk in the door already. Wild. So anyway, we kind of got off on a tangent there. My friend of mine, who's a pilot, got off a plane in Mexico City and wandered into a furry convention. And he did not know it was a furry convention. Somebody said, "Hey, there's this." I think it was somebody had started to talk to. They're like, "Hey, there's this fan, whatever comic convention going on, and I can get you in." So he goes in through the back door. This convention is full of furries. That was his first. I know Mexico has conventions.
Mexico is actually like obviously I wouldn't be able to sell stuff for nearly as much.
Hmm.
Like because I mean we went to an art fair when we were there because we almost always go and look for artists while we're in Mexico, and it's like I bought really nice paintings for a couple $100s. Like people should be definitely charging way more.
Yeah.
So but there is a crowd wise, it's a lot more artistically focused. And a lot more like creepy art is embraced a lot more. Like I have a ton of followers on well I did back when Instagram before it got metaed to death. I had a ton of like I think besides the US, the Mexico was like 38% of my
second,
following.
Yeah.
So it's like crazy high numbers for creepy people, and I've done like album covers for bands in Mexico, so it's like I appeal way more to
Well, there's potential
That's
then,
good.
and you would have the benefits of the difference in average prices of things being lower there, I
Yeah.
suppose. So you could make a lower price point work
Yeah.
compared to what you would need just to survive here in the States.
That's very true because like I mean, I don't know, you've seen our house. It's or Ernesto's house. It's like this isn't a huge house. It was a very decrepit house when we got it.
Yeah.
Like we had to do so much work to make this not fall apart, literally. And for the amount that this house is worth, we could have like a huge compound in Mexico City.
Right. You
It
could have
makes
a
no
villa.
sense. Yes. Like we were looking up places and we're like, oh, this is slightly more than our house cost, and it's 8,000 square feet.
Mhm.
Which I mean, we're not going to do that. That's who needs 8,000 square feet. That's
Right,
insane.
right, yeah.
Yeah, I
You
was
take the profit off of the sale, and that goes into your quality of life
Yeah.
down there.
I always get these in my spare time when I'm bored. I look at like random addresses on Zillow. I don't know why. It's just what I do, and I guess because of that, I start getting these ads for like, look at how much you can afford in Thailand. And every time I see those prices from the realtors, like the international realtors over there, I'm like, well, I really never wanted to move to Thailand until right now because the prices are so low over there.
Well, like I
Yeah.
said, expat life can be very, very good.
Yeah. It is
Don't
like I know
discount it. There is a trade-off. Of course, there are, a number of trade-offs, especially if you're someone who makes most of your money from, say, conventions in the States, then you have to factor that in, that either you're dropping a lot of events or you're factoring in an extra, $1,000 or whatever to fly into the States to do maybe a couple shows in a row.
Yeah. And there is I know that Singapore definitely has like I kind of worry about that with Mexico is like Singapore's having a problem where there's too many people moving there and it's pushing out the reason why it's cheap.
Sure. Yeah.
Mexico's having the same problem, so it's like me, white lady, talking about
Well,
living there.
with what's happening in the States right now, it's likely to happen everywhere all over the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, I very much don't want to displace people, so it's like I'm kind of thinking, well, because, obviously Ernesto's from there, it's not as bad as it could be, but that's part of one of the reasons why we want to do a publisher is we want to eventually enable studios in like Mexico to launch.
Right.
Yeah.
Have a chance to give something back.
Yes.
As well.
That is the dream. Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully build a
plan.
community.
Yes.
Yeah.
I kind of am tempted to open like a board game cafe so I can have a little nerd hangout. So
yes. A community you want to see.
I'm not familiar with anything about how I'm actually pretty familiar with how Europe is with conventions and RPGs and things like that because it's such a huge deal over there. I know nothing about how Mexico is with that. I mean, you said they're into creepy things, but do you think a board game cafe, are they all about D&D or board games or?
They D&D, yes. They're really, really like Mexico embraced anime way before the US did.
Hmm.
So they're huge into right now is One Piece. They love playing One Piece. So you'll find like there's cafes like honestly me doing a board game cafe that may be filling a niche, but like there are plenty of them around there. It's just that Mexico is very more modular in terms of almost everything's walkable, so you go to where you
Right,
can
right.
walk to. So it's like if you
So you
live
would
somewhere,
find a
yeah,
community that doesn't have that particular niche already addressed and
yes.
make one there, but probably a number of them already have them.
Oh yeah, there are whole like back alley setups where there's all these different vendors. It's like a permanent convention kind of, and they're all selling K-pop figurines or like a ton of those K-pop like music stuff, or they'll have like anime figurines, a bunch of card decks, old
Yeah.
Game Boy stuff. Like there's nerd conventions in the form of back alleys.
I mean, I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I could just get the people that would only come to my booth in one room, that would be nice. So if you, yeah, I guess we're always talking about the more. Who are we talking to? Uh, it was. I always forget this guy's name because it's not as it's Dougie.
Yeah.
Who he's not even doing conventions anymore because he found more of a niche in the markets, right? And so I always
Well, it
believe
was what was the
oddities
oddities markets,
markets, and they're
Oh,
which are
I've
kind
been
everywhere.
of like
trying to get
mini
into those.
conventions.
That's the one show I want to get into is the oddities one, but they only open up like Halloween Day for like
Yeah,
eight
it's like
hours.
yeah.
I missed it by like an hour.
Right, yeah, because they open up applications for like all their shows throughout the year just once through the yeah, it's quite a
It's the
thing. I think also
tiniest
your
window.
work is very um draftsman like linear like stuff to it, so you'd probably do well at tattoo conventions, I would think too.
Possibly. I mean, that's kind of like the two things I get told. Well, I have I don't know, three things I get told. I get the why aren't you working for Magic? Uh why aren't you in the oddity show? And why don't you do tattoos?
Yeah.
And like I know several tattoo artists, like the oddities one. I'm trying Magic. I or not Magic Wizards. They're like, why aren't you working for Wizards? It's like I have applied for Wizards so many times.
Right, right.
So many art directors from Wizards follow me on social media or I'm friends with. None of the I've never got a job response from them once. So it's like I don't know what is happening there that is beating a dead horse at this point. And then the what was the last one? Oh, tattoos. So I have tattoo artist friends, and they're like, "Yeah, your work would work well as tattoos are fairly, it does not everything is a 1-to-1 transcription. Like tattoos you have to allow space for ink to flow under the skin,
Right.
so it's not quite. Oh, there's not a 1-to-1 ratio. You do need to interpret it. Um, but they're like, you will have no time if you do tattoos. You will work 60-hour weeks. Your hands will be dead.
Well,
You'll have no free time.
I'm not saying you should do tattoos. I'm saying your work would appeal to the sorts of demographic that is found at a tattoo convention, and you
Yeah.
could sell your work there, I think.
Yeah, like I said, that is true. I do get my art stolen by tattoo artists a lot. They love to like
It's
tag
a
me in it.
sign.
I'm like, what is happening here?
It's a sign. Anyway, that's what I would suggest. But
I guess it's technically master copy, so you can't sue them. How does that work?
I don't know.
not
It's
like
like
you're gonna take it off of someone's body.
Yeah,
And be
No.
like,
I guess it
sorry, this
counts
is
as an
mine.
original. So
I get mad. Like I do have a tattoo policy on my website where it's like, if you want a tattoo of my stuff, please buy a print. That way you have something to show to the tattoo artist. And if I don't have it as a print,
Right, right.
email me. And it's like tattoo artist is like, I will license you stuff, but like you can't just take my shit and put it in your Flash portfolio. That's not,
Yeah.
which is usually what
Yeah.
happens.
And as far as I know, I did my whole like senior English thesis on copyright law. I'm pretty sure as long that they can just do that. I mean, I don't think you can sue them in any way because they're not selling like hard copies of your work.
I think if they have it in their Flash portfolio, it is technically, because then they're like it's on their books. They're offering it as an item of their, but it's like if it's a one-off.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, if
Right,
it's in their
right.
book, you could argue it's an advertisement for their store or something like that in use. But yeah. It would be.
Don't encourage it.
I do want to say no. I don't think it's right. I don't think it's right.
Right.
Also, like you'd think if you were a tattoo artist, right, and you didn't sort of create and understand the artwork. I mean, I know you're essentially tracing after a certain point in the process, but you'd think like there's no way I can make this look good unless you're a really good tattoo artist. Because, like you're saying, you have to change things up to make it work.
Yeah.
I don't know. You
I
feel
mean,
like they want their own stuff.
There's a lot of tattoo artists though that can't draw for the life of them.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of tattoo artists out there. So you can have a full range. You know, all the way from people who only do their own stuff to some mix of the above to people who are just like, well, just like the AI people out there, they'll take whatever they can get.
Yeah. That's the other thing. Tattoo artists, like, to become a tattoo artist is kind of predatory as hell right now. Because you
Right,
have to...
the whole apprentice sort of
yeah,
system
you
that
have
they
to
have
essentially
going.
be free labor for, like, 3 years. Like, it's insane. And from what I've heard, there's a lot of it's still incredibly misogynistic, and, like, every woman tattoo artist I know has a lot of horror stories.
Oh, God.
So, yeah. Yeah, you know, industry.
Yeah, I bet even the weirdest people like at fantasy comic conventions don't compare to what female tattoo artists see.
Oh yeah. Though I did one of my tattoo artist friends was telling me, she's like, okay, if someone's an asshole and like she usually turns them away, but like sometimes she doesn't know until she's working on them and then they start rambling. And then she's like, I just take longer because I charge by the hour.
Here, let me charge you for some extra slow pain.
I think I'm gonna crosshatch this one now. Yeah.
Yep. Be nice to your tattoo artist, people.
Well, it'll be exciting to see what you continue on in the future. I mean, it's not like you're gonna stop making art in general.
I don't think Audrey could stop making art. Like, don't you like you pretty much like sketch every single day and
Yeah. I mean, I kind of the way I see it, like I know a lot of artists that are giving up, unfortunately, like one of my teammates that got let go at the same time from Netflix, like she's been going through a really rough time and she's been like pretty much working on phasing out of art entirely, and she's worked on some crazy cool projects, and it's like she's so skilled, and that's far from the only one. Like Bryn Matheny, I love her to death. She's raising goats in the Arizona desert now and works as a park ranger. Like, which is honestly, I would be a park ranger if I wasn't an artist. But now that job is gone too. But yeah, like a lot of the art heroes that I looked up to are
moving to other things.
Yeah, and I've kind of come to this conclusion that like I can't completely phase it out because like I didn't quite have the same path to art that most people do. Like, because I mean, well, Bruce, you know this a bit. Like, I come from a pretty poor background. I was working since grade school. Like, I've had jobs literally since I was a toddler. So it's like I went from being like an Oshkosh Bagosh toddler model to working a paper route with several hundred people and working in a bindery, on a farm, on, multiple retail jobs. It's like, I worked, by the time I graduated, I had 10 jobs already from high school. It's like, I've done all the physical labor part of my life already. This is where I get to enjoy myself.
Right.
It's like, let me art for once. Uh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever, even if I stopped being an illustrator, I don't think I'd ever stop painting. So I definitely feel where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I think it's just in you at a certain point. I don't think I like to. People always ask me, why did I want to become an artist? And I said I never had a choice. Once it was there, and
Hmm.
it's not going away.
Yeah. I mean, I used art to cope with a lot of shit
Yeah.
growing up. Like art and reading, that was like my escape. And I think I kind of got the look of the alternative fairly early. Well, like my mom, I didn't realize it was or is a, was, I'm not sure, I haven't seen her draw in forever, but like I didn't know she could draw because she never told me. She never had anything around. She never drew anything. She works as like a graphic designer, but like she was making like business cards for like trucking
Right,
companies.
yeah.
Um, and then like I was in high school and she like pulls out from behind like a bookcase in her bedroom this self portrait she drew in college in pencil that was insanely good. And I was like, why are you not doing this? And it's like she gave it up. And like I was just, that crushed me seeing how the level
Right.
of skill she
You've
had,
seen
that
what
she
that
just,
looks like, and you're
yeah.
like, nope.
Yeah, and I mean, she didn't want me to do art. None of my family did. It's like, but I watched. She crushed her dream for, I'm not sure why. If I guess because graphic design was easiest to get into, and I didn't want that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
No reason that you should. I mean, you do stuff traditionally which should function well, and you have all this experience uh, with studio work and stuff that hopefully you can turn into your own project. So
Yeah. Hopefully. I mean, I've done a lot of jack of all trades stuff, so I'm kind of getting back into the jack of all trades stuff with the indie things, but like that will,
you do what you have to do to
yeah.
survive, but I know at the end of the day you're still going to be sketching like a monster a day.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not totally not sitting next to like a pile of, random.
Yeah. I mean, even when we were vending at Planet Comic Con those years ago, and you were sitting there drawing, you were sketching a monster as you were standing at your booth.
It was
That's
a
how
slow
I
show.
knew. That's how I
Man,
knew that no one's gonna stop Audrey from drawing.
You can, I lose my hands, which I'm terrified of losing my hands. I will go blind before I lose my hands, I think. I will learn to draw with my feet.
Well, at this point, they could probably fit you with a prosthetic that was just a bunch of pencils, and you could just keep on
Like
drawing.
words.
Yes.
yeah. You, you
Freddy
might get
Krueger with
mild.
pencils.
You might improve wildly. You never know.
Uh,
Once it's the, I saw a prosthetic today that was wireless and you control it with your mind. That's
oh
pretty weird. How
yeah,
about
it was
that?
like the interview where she like took her hand off and then like started crawling across the desk.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, that,
we live in wild
They've
times.
got some really, really amazing things there. Not that we're gonna get to that point, but
not that I'm gonna have that level of healthcare insurance.
right.
Yeah, I sat by. I used to love flying. Before I did it enough to hate it, and I was sitting at the Denver airport, enjoying a cocktail, and this woman sits beside me, and we start, chatting. And she was so. For instance, she worked for the insurance company that insures Beyonce's voice, and that was her job, was to be a rep and go and basically be an account man and go talk to these people. So she was going back from LA to wherever she was going, and I was like, you must be really good at selling things then, because you're trying to convince people to insure something that maybe they're not used to. And she's like, I don't know, maybe I'm good at it. And I said, okay, I'm an artist. I like, could you try, like, what would be your pitch for, if I need to insure my hands for my livelihood? And all she said was, well, do you have hand insurance? Why not? It was a
It was a very simple pitch. It's
Yes,
just
no.
like, dude, I'm off work here. I'm trying to enjoy a drink or whatever.
Well, no, her entire basis of it is that people don't think about it. And the second
Yeah.
you plant the idea in their head, they're like, oh my God, I could lose my hands. It just reminded me of that.
Yeah, I don't want to think about that.
Well, Audrey, I think you've got a stream in a little bit. I don't want us
Oh,
to go over
I
and
don't like. I'm not. My people have gotten used to me never being on time.
okay.
I have trained them.
I don't want you to have anything to blame us for.
Oh no,
You
no,
know,
you're
because
fine.
we're we do have
Uh,
a tendency to go over time because we're having fun chatting with our people.
oh no, that's totally fine. Like I said, I started getting into streaming just because like Instagram is dead, Blue Sky's growing pains. Twitter's honestly where I had the most connections, even though I had the tiniest following there.
No.
But that's dead.
Yeah.
So it's dead. Uh, so yeah, I started doing Twitch because I was like maybe, and it's not big at all. It's still tiny, but it's like it's nice actually to be able to chat with like I would get a bunch of like Patreon backers will come by.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a reinforcing thing with Patreon as well.
Yeah. And then if I kind of can get that to do well enough that I can like maybe tax write off games because I save Friday for streaming games. Because I was like, if I'm going to be indie publisher, I need to play more games.
Sure.
So yeah,
So are you streaming games or do you stream your art?
I stream art. It started during the Kickstarter. Well, it started like years ago, and then I launched it back or like a couple years ago. But so I launched it back during the Kickstarter, and I was doing every single day of the Kickstarter, every weekday. And then that's exhausting. So I was like, all right, I'll do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Monday and Wednesday are art, and Friday's games. So, and it's like usually an indie horror game.
And so it's all viewers, right? I mean, there's no way for them to voice in or anything like that.
No, yeah, I think you could kind of add something like that if like you have people subscribe. You can have like higher tier things, but I honestly don't know how that works yet, and I'm not going to worry about it for a while.
Nice.
I do like I did Wednesday. I streamed with a friend, so we were both working on indie games together. So we're like sometimes I'll be co-streaming with somebody. So that's fun. But yeah, that way at least you get a conversation going. Other than that, you're just kind of like reading chat and talking back to them. But yes.
What time's your stream start?
Usually I start at like 1. So you're not bad.
Yeah,
We're fine.
20 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess yeah, we can let you go. We've tried to. This has been a true hangout because we haven't done a lot of shop talk. We've done a lot of life talk, and I told a handless story. But
sorry.
No, it's fine. I mean, I used to end this back a long time ago before it was really like a true hangout podcast by asking artists like, what's one tip you might give to people listening to this who want to follow in your footsteps? So I'll ask you that.
Oh god. Well, if they want to specifically follow me, study biology. There's no avoiding being a creature artist and knowing biology. Like, you can't have one without the other, in my mind. And other than that, just life of our general advice to anybody starting an art career: don't be an asshole. People remember.
Yep.
There are lists. They might not be public, but there are lists.
And on the biology thing, I was just going to say, like, inspiration flows from having knowledge about how things work. I see it in your work all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just like knowing how these various little like different types of toes and flippers and gills and this and that work, seems to be a limitless well of inspiration to what you do. And
Yeah.
I'm in awe of it.
Well, thank you.
That's one thing I learned. What's that?
Oh, sorry. What were you saying?
It's one thing I learned from Todd is that the guy knows probably more anatomy than a doctor. I mean, it's insane. I used to wonder how he drew dragons so well, and that's the answer: is he knows anatomy like the back of his hand.
Yeah, I mean that kind of like when I was at Netflix, people kind of like my art director kind of realized she's like, I can just hand you anything and you can anatomy it.
Yeah.
And
So,
that kept you around there for
that
a
was one of
good
the
long
things.
while, right?
I also I started sculpting things, so I moved the schedule up by 3 months because I could hand off models to people setting up the sets before the vendors could get models back. So you'd think I would have bought myself some job security at that.
Well, you probably did, just not as much as you would have liked.
Yeah. You learn.
I mean, there's just some stuff that you don't have any control over, unfortunately, with those big corporate gigs.
Yeah. I mean, and the stuff I got moved on to was so very different that to suddenly switch from one week to the next to completely switch styles and everything was very jarring, and there wasn't enough time to kind of get used to it, and I kind of spite learned how to do it afterwards. So it's now I'd be confident doing it, but then I was like, what is happening?
Yeah.
So things happen, you learn. But
Well, it's all stuff that you can put into your own projects going forward.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I always keep learning.
None of it's wasted.
It's true. You never know where it comes back. All right. Well, it was great talking to you. We'll have to do this again. The time went by so quickly. I swore it had only been 10 minutes.
I'm sorry if I railroaded things into live talk.
No,
We talked about
you're
Mexico
perfectly
City a
fine.
lot.
That's what we like.
This
actually.
was fun. Yeah.
I'd rather have this than sit here and jam you with questions that might put you on the spot, or.
I mean, I'm good with. I don't know. I don't know what questions you'd ask me. I don't know if I'd be good at them, but
Well, yeah.
It went well. That's what matters.
Oh, great.
True.
Well, thanks for having me. This was
fun. Thanks for joining us. All right. Well, if you liked this, you can subscribe and comment any other artists you might want to see, or if you have any other questions for Audrey. We might have Mark Poole on the podcast next. We're not sure. We're talking to him. He liked the idea. We'll see.
He's a good guy.
We'll see.
And Audrey, where can people find you?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much if you Google Charamath, which is the art name I work under, because stalkers. You'll find me. I'm mostly on Blue Sky these days, and then, starting up Twitch streaming again. Yes.
What is Charamath?
CHARAMATH.
Okay. Is there any story behind that? Besides the stalkers?
I had a stalker for a while, and he would find anything attached to my name and try to hack it for a decade.
Oh boy. Okay.
So yeah, that was why I started an art name.
A very good argument for handles.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we came in at the late end of the handles. Everyone I taught in college, they had different names. They never went by their actual name. And now I'm just Alamar's Art everywhere, and it's all my branding. So.
I've started to put my name back in there. It's Audrey Charamath Schutte, but it's for a while there, it was still up until 3 years ago. He would still prod.
Yeah, I think I was always a big advocate of using your own name until you told me that story, and then I'm like, okay, that's a situation that I've never had to deal with and probably never will, and I totally understand.
Yeah.
I probably won't have to. Hopefully, I'll never have to.
Yeah, one hopes.
Deal with it. I don't know. Maybe you want a stalker, Bruce. I don't know. But
I'm good. All right.
A fun note to end this on. All right.
Yeah. All right.
Catch you guys next time.
Yeah, catch you next time.